Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on a new episode of Meet the Furies, one of our streams with some of our colleagues working here at Fury. Does it sound good? Everyone can hear me?
Hello, hello.
Maybe I should take this mask down because I'm dead anyway, so I won't catch anything.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you're already dead. Oof.
So today I have with me, I don't know, who do I have with me today? I don't really know who.
I'm Pirate Liam. I was convinced by Andrea to get dressed up for this stream. So thank you, Andrea. Hello, everybody. Nice to be on the show. Been a long time fan of Meet the Furies, so it's an honor to be a part of this.
Thank you for joining. So Liam and Loki. Loki is with us as well, or what's left of him. We don't really know what happened, but
it's okay, Loki. It's okay.
So today we are gonna talk about game production, and we'll try to understand a little bit more what Liam is doing here at Fury. So Liam, are you concerned about being actually a guest in a stream and not the one asking the questions?
Terrified. Yes, absolutely terrified. As you say, I'm usually the person hosting and just asking other people difficult questions. So it's scary to think that I now have to try and say remotely intelligent things to people watching. So hopefully at least there'll be a nugget of information somewhere that can be useful for somebody. Otherwise, I apologize in advance.
Yeah, you should be scared, actually.
Terrified.
But thank you for your generosity of taking the time, sharing with us a little bit of your knowledge about game production. I think it's very useful for everyone to learn, what it takes to put a game in the market. Even for myself, I'm like very curious to learn more today. And we're gonna have also some giveaways during this stream, so stay with us as long as you can, and hopefully some fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So Liam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you end up working with games?
Sure. It's funny. I actually remember the moment that I decided I wanted to make games, and it's a bit of a weird one. I think I didn't know at the time that was going to be the moment, but I've realized in later years that is definitely the time when I realized this is something I want to be doing. And it was when I was a kid, I was making a lot of mods, basically a lot of levels for like RTS games like Age of Empires and Warcraft, and I was making maps. I'd be on summer holiday for 3 months, and I'd just be every day I'm working on some stupid map. And I had a friend his name is Nico. He would always play my maps with me, and he'd always give me really honest feedback. Like I could work on something for 2 weeks. I'd show him for the first time, and he'd be like, it's kind of boring, which is great because you need the honest feedback if you're going to build something. And I remember this one time I was working on a map, and I'd lost inspiration a little bit. We'd played it a couple of times, and he was enjoying it, I was enjoying it, but I just ran out of ideas. I didn't really know where to go with it. And about 2 weeks later, he calls me up and he asked, do you want to play your map? And this was the first time he'd ever suggested that we were going to play one of the things that I'd built. And I was kind of surprised because we had all these real games that were like made by big teams, huge budgets. And here he is suggesting that we're going to play my crappy little map that I made in my spare time. And it was pretty cool. And it just got me a little bit excited. And I started thinking, this is a good feeling. If you can build something that someone actually wants to spend their free time playing, that's quite cool. And I know for a fact that he was just genuinely into it. He always gave me honest feedback. So that's when I realized I wanted to make games. Then I realized there were a couple schools you could apply to. So I applied to some of those, got in, ended up doing a game design course for about 2 years. So I thought I wanted to be a designer, and I realized pretty quickly that I don't want to be a designer because it's tricky work. It's a lot more complex than I think people realize. And I ended up applying for an internship within quality assurance, QA, and got a job at a place called Fat Shark, which is also here in Stockholm, Sweden. Did a couple years there, and then tried out the production role a couple years in and realized that I really quite enjoyed it. So got a job here at Raw Fury because I know the guy, one of the co-founders, Gordon. He kept telling me, come on, Raw Fury is pretty cool. And I was like, I don't know about this Raw Fury thing. And then I came in for a proper little chat and fell in love with the place. And I think they haven't been able to get rid of me since. So that's really, really cool.
Thank you for letting us know a little bit about your path in the games industry. I was thinking that maybe it's because your friend was so straightforward with you and he said like, yeah, what you are doing is not good enough. Don't be a game designer. Try something else. Or
no. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, in hindsight, I probably should have realized. But no, it's good.
I'm kidding. I know like you do advise and get involved a little bit here and there also on the game creation part.
I just pester people with ideas and feedback, and then sometimes they
listen to you.
Yeah, I mean, I have no actual power when it comes to the design of our games, and I think that's a good thing.
Like so many people here in the chat, they are talking about our games, and it's so nice to see that you guys are enjoying our games. It's like really touches our heart. I've seen also a couple of questions, and please continue writing questions. We'll also try to answer as many of them. So, Liam, what games do you work with here at Raw Fury?
Well, I've got to be careful now not to accidentally say any names. I'm not allowed to. But I've worked on a few. The first game I got to be a part of was Tormentor X Punisher. I kind of joined Raw Fury the month before it launched. So I got to hop on that right at the chaotic launch time, which was really good fun. Completely fell in love with that game, even though it kicked my ass repeatedly. I worked on Ernogger Unlimited with Niflis, who's such a lovely and talented developer. Had a lot of fun with that one. And then... what else? Whispers of Machine, Night Call. Again, I'm like in love with all our games. I'm just going to sit here and geek out over all of them. Bad North, I got to do that, which was phenomenally fun. What else? Trying to think. Again, trying not to announce anything by accident because I'm working on a few things that we aren't talking about yet.
Atomic Crops,
yes. Star Renegades. Completely fantastic teams as well. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Am I? I don't know.
Cafe Rain was released before you joined.
Exactly. Right? I got to work with Clifftop on Whispers of the Machine together with Faravid Interactive as well, and Joel and Petter and the crew is just, man, I love those guys. Super fun to get to work with everyone. But yeah, a couple of things that we're not talking about yet, which we're very interested in. Oh, right, and Paraspora, which is launching pretty soon. So that's the new one that we're very focused on.
Quite a few games, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
3 years and a half, right? You've been here almost 4 years.
I think so. It's about 3.5 years. Yeah, I joined in May
2017.
Yeah.
So tell us some of the games that are not announced yet.
Sure. So we have this one game. Nice try, Andrea. Nice try. Try to get me fired on stream. No, I mean I'll say this. We do have a couple of things for next year that we are. That we're talking about right now, exactly when to announce and how to get into them. One of them is...
Tell us more.
I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to spoil anything, but one of them in particular that's coming out next year, I think is really different. And that's a good thing sometimes. And it's going to, I think, surprise some people in some very good ways. And I can't wait to talk more about that one. That's all I can say today. Sorry.
What about your colleagues, their game producers? Can you say something about their unannounced games?
Sure, yes. So Loki, who couldn't be here today, he's working on this thing, which is really nice. Now, I mean, look, we have... Let me try and remember here. Because I remember there was a moment not too long ago where we started to realize that the amount of games that we're working on that we aren't talking about yet is pretty damn high. So we've got a lot of announcements coming out over, I think, even this year and the next year as well. But I can't spoil anything too much.
Since we have so many games announced, we're still working on and upcoming games, like how big is the game production team at Raw Fury? How many of you are? Left, since it seems like many of them kind of, I don't know, disappear. for some reason.
Loki couldn't be here today. There are, I think, 5 of us, 6 maybe. Let me think here. We have Daniel, we have Loki, we have FX, Martin, and Coem. So there are 6 of us currently. Actually, there's 7 as well, because Tom is also on board as a development producer for Kingdom these days. Mm-hmm. So there are 7 producers at Raw Fury doing more of the kind of publishing, production, and development production. But I think one of the things with the production role in general is it's a flexible role, it means a lot of different things. So I would argue that even if we could say there's 7 producers, almost everyone at Raw Fury does something producery, so it wouldn't be fair for us to take all that credit. It's very much a team effort, and a lot of things that I do on a day-to-day basis are impossible to do alone and require all the team around us. And in many cases, we have people like in our cell, for example, in our publishing units, that do production work on certain titles, or it can be basically all sorts of stuff. So 7 standard producers, and then a bunch of people who help us on the way.
Who are different type of producers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, like, what is your main goal, like purpose within your work, your role as a game producer, Raw Fury? If you could describe that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would say that my goal is to get in the way of the developers as little as possible, and just try and assist any way possible, right? Like we as Raw Fury, we always see ourselves as equal partners with the developers we work with. We don't want to be a classic publisher-developer hierarchy where we're calling the shots and making decisions about the games for devs. We're very much on the same terms. And so I think it's important for us to come in and ask the question, what can we do for you, right? Like, how can we support you in making your game, as opposed to tell you how to do it. And so for every team, it's quite different. For some games, like, again, I'm like trying not to announce stuff. We're working on a game right now with a developer who we've done some stuff with in the past. And it's funny with that team, because we meet once a month. Actually, we don't meet more than that unless we need to. So we have like one regular call every month, and then a lot of it is just text or talking when we need to. And that's the kind of relationship which I think is really successful, because we've reached a point where they have everything they need, they know what they're doing, and they know they can contact us when they need something. So I think that's kind of the dream scenario to be in, is they know that we're here for whatever they might need, and they also don't have to like report to us or anything like that and waste time. And then on the flip side, we have teams like another one that I'm working on, an unannounced game, which is really cool. Where we have meetings several times a week, because I'm a lot more involved in like the day-to-day planning of that game and doing the more standard development production work. So we'll be running our sprints and planning out the tasks for the near future, all these kinds of conversations. And then it's a lot more talk. And so I think what I'm trying to say here is, my goal is to be there for the team the way that they need me to be there, and get in their way as little as possible. That's really the goal.
Yeah. Something that I think you are very good at, and is like representing the developers in a lot of the internal discussions that we have. So when it comes to release date, to roadmap, to budgets, to, like anything that we need to communicate to the developers that we work with, like Liam, he's always the first one saying, but how do you think they feel, or did you talk to them, and that is great. It always reminding us that he's this gatekeeper, and always like taking so good care of the developer. And I think this also kind of goes way back into like why Raw Fury was, how Raw Fury came to life, right? It's like changing a little bit, as you said, the way the indie games are put to market, and why, and also the way we do it, because we don't have these traditional milestones. We our developers don't get paid only if a milestone is approved or not. The way we handle them. Like, if I feel like that is like something you are doing very well, like being there for them.
Thank you, appreciate it. And it's an interesting topic as well. Milestones is, for anyone who's not aware, by the way, maybe we should talk about the general idea of milestones a little bit. Typical publisher developer, when you sign a deal, you have some kind of schedule for basically where the game needs to be at what point, and those are called milestones. So you have something like, in October you need to have so and so features, 2 levels, a character, the fireball ability, like whatever it is has to be done in October, and then in November these things have to be done, and then in December these things have to be done, right? And there are cases like you're describing, Andrea, where the developer only gets paid if you hit those milestones. So if you miss content, then suddenly you might end up in a situation where you're not getting paid. And we opted out entirely of that model and just go for, instead, we pay our developers every month, doesn't matter what they deliver or don't deliver. And that's really important to us, because we think that if you build a relationship for development based on trust instead and transparency, then you're going to have, at the end of the day, a much better game, because you're not taking shortcuts just to hit arbitrary dates and like, oh yeah, we have 2 days to do a new character. Let's just rush something together. And then you end up having a bunch of technical debt, and then you have to fix that later on anyway. Like we go for a route which is a lot less enforced. And if developers feel like milestones can be helpful for them, then we'll sit down and we'll do a schedule together. Like the developers behind Bad North, I think we had a really interesting back and forth with them, where we started off, they were just kind of doing their thing, and I'd check in regularly, and we'd be talking about like, okay, so how's the game going? Like, what are you working on right now? Very casual. And then at a certain point, they realized we actually want a clearer schedule, just for their own like motivation, and then for having more clarity and less ambiguity, right? So we had them come up to Stockholm. We sat down together. We just planned out the scope for the next couple of months. And then we did that for a while. And then when they got into the groove, we just went, okay, this is feeling pretty good. And they said, we don't think we need milestones anymore. And they go, perfect. Okay. So we won't do that. And I think that's the whole goal, is like, we don't want to force these methods on anyone, but if they need help, if they need us to have a conversation about it and give some advice on like, this is how you can plan your project, then we're happy to do that. It's really up to the devs what they feel they need.
So it sounds like you are wearing different hats depending on the season of the year, right? If it's Halloween, winter.
Indeed.
But then also depending on the oh my God, how much blood can you drink?
Yes, the blood of developers. Sorry.
Yes, so you are wearing different hats depending on the needs of each and every developer, right? So no relationship is the same. And I assume also maybe the way you work might be very different than the way Loki works. So if some of the developers, or Daniel or Martin, you guys have to adapt a lot to each and every team.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, like I think if we signed a game and we forced the devs to adapt to our way of working, then we're sort of failing with the idea of what Raw Fury is supposed to be. Instead, we try and go in with the attitude that we should change based on the developer's needs, not the other way around. And it's very different from team to team and from game to game. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so exciting for me, at least. Like coming in, I couldn't describe to you what a normal day looks like here, at least not for me. And that's what makes it super fun. It really is. We have a lot of fun chat in the chat. Hello, everyone.
Right. So we have a lot of questions, but before we go, and before we dig even deeper into game production, maybe we can share with everyone about a very, very nice competition that we are running during this week called Creepypasta Concourse.
Ooh, what's that? What's Creepypasta Concourse, Andrea?
So the idea behind it, we want to hear the creepy stories from you guys, a lot of creepy stories. We want to see creepy images, creepy paintings, everything. Send it our way. Can be inspired by...
Sorry.
Can be inspired by our games or not. We just want to spread the creepiness during this time of the year. And since we like food, we thought like we are gonna award the winner. Not everyone. We are sorry. We cannot afford to reward everyone, but we are gonna reward someone with a pasta machine.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yes, exactly. You can do your own pasta. So yeah. Please don't hesitate to drop a line or a painting or anything creepy our way.
Very cool.
Don't send any creepy food, please. Like, yeah. So this is happening now.
Do you have any scary stories, Andrea?
Nope.
No. I heard the shortest scary story of all time. I saw this in some thread years ago, and it was. It's just 4 words: empty house, baby crying. And that's scary.
That's even more scary for me for personal reasons. But
sorry.
Right. Okay. Do you feel also a little bit generous of handing over some game codes?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, if the people want game codes, let's
do you guys want some games?
Okay. For the announced games, I hope.
Yes. Game! Ooh. So what was the most recent game you released, you worked on?
Most recent one I worked on was Star Renegades, which we're still working on it. We're still getting more content for the game. So the team Massive Damage are just hard at work right now on a pretty big update for December. So that's going to be coming out pretty soon. I know they're also working on a smaller update, which is going to bring some changes to the armory for the players who know Star Renegades. So that's coming out, I think, in like a week or two. It's going to be pretty soon. And we have the console versions as well, which are coming out. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but they're coming out.
It's coming out
soon, very soon, like within a month.
Like maybe today. Who knows?
Not today. It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be today. Not today.
Oh, okay. So we had some delays there. Sounds like we'll talk a little bit about delays as well, and why Liam allows this to happen. So do you want to ask us a question about Star Renegades? We'll drop the question in the chat, and the first person that will give the right answer is going to receive a code for the game.
Oh, okay. So you want me to ask a question to the chat? Mm-hmm. I see. Well, okay. What is the name of the second boss in Star Renegades? The second behemoth, I should say. If you know the answer, we'll give you a code to something?
For the game. For Star Renegades, yes.
Okay. Yeah, does anyone know the name of the second behemoth? Drop it in the chat and you will win a key.
Yes, cool. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, the process of, when we start with a new developer, the first discussions. Oh, it got darker here in the room.
Yeah, I like this. This Halloween stream just got real.
Yes. Yes. So when we usually start collaborating with a new development team, and you have the first discussions with them, what are the main things that you think or you've seen so far they haven't really put too much thought into it, and from a production perspective, and that would be useful for people to know.
Okay, so just kind of general like things that are good to think about when you start working with a publisher specifically, or like what are you after here?
I think like when you start working with a publisher, but then also in general, you are making maybe your first game, some things that developers maybe don't realize they should keep in mind.
Okay.
Early on.
That's a good question. It's a really good question. I mean, I think if we're just talking boring producery stuff, right? Like make sure...
That's what we're talking about today.
That's why we're here. I think having a good sense of your scope is always really healthy, and trying to break that down in a way that's tangible. And what I mean by that is if you're using a standard kind of project management tool and you have your tasks, labeled in a way that's a bit too grand. Like if you have a task that is gameplay or even something like combat, if that's a task, that's a pretty massive thing and it's a big undertaking. And it's a lot healthier to break that down into something that is a little more bite-sized and that can actually be completed on a regular interval. It may seem weird, but the feeling of marking things as complete is actually a big motivator, and it's going to make you feel like you're making progress. Sometimes we've seen teams that they've worked for a really long time on something and they feel like they're stuck. They feel like they're not getting anywhere. But then you look at it from an external perspective and you realize they're actually getting a lot of stuff done. It just doesn't feel that way. So that can be a good motivator as well. And breaking your stuff down into good, tangible chunks is very healthy. The other thing that I suppose this is more of a game design thing, but having a good sense of what your minute-to-minute gameplay is, and also what the hook is that keeps a player engaged. So if it's a meta progression, like if you're unlocking higher levels outside of an individual run, or if you're getting permanent upgrades like in Atomic Romps or Star Renegades, then if you know what those things are, I think it's quite helpful to inform the rest of the design for the game. So think about what a regular minute looks like for a player, and think about what the longer term looks like for a player, and it's gonna inform a lot of the decisions that you have to make. But aside from that, just a regular general thought is, when are you talking to each other? You know, it's a very producery thing again, but like, how are you making sure that your team is talking, and what are you talking about? Those are important questions to ask yourself. And if that's scheduling a daily like stand-up meeting where you're just talking 5 minutes every morning, talking about what you're doing today, what you're doing tomorrow, or if it's a team meeting to sit down and play the game together once a month, whatever it is, just make sure that you're having regular communication so everyone's on the same page. I couldn't tell you how many times I've worked with games where not everybody is on the same page. Like somebody has one idea of what the game is, somebody has a slightly different one. Getting everyone on the same page so you actually all know what the game is really, really important. So those are some very random, all over the place suggestions, but they're big ones, and they're mistakes that everyone makes. So those would be my tips to think about.
What about the timeline? Do you feel that the development teams, they do, consider when they share, like, okay, the game is going to be ready in 2 years, let's say. Yep. Do they keep in mind things that are needed, like for marketing purposes, assets, localizations, a lot of things, voiceovers, a lot of other things that they go into the game process? And I'm sure you have way more things to list, keep in mind.
They're good examples. I think in general, it's tough. 2 years before the game releases, it's tough to know exactly what your marketing plan is going to be, and how much time are you going to be spending on events, or how much time are you going to be spending on just recording trailer footage or building tools that helps you do those things, or voiceovers, as you mentioned. That might be something that you realize a year later that you need to do. So it is important to think about how those things are going to impact the general scope and schedule of the game. I think it's like when you're planning your game, it's also important to have an idea of what the priority of different things are. So if everything is super important, then it's kind of tricky to come to a point where you have to cut something. And the fact is, every single game probably needs to cut something at some point, just because regardless of how ambitious or how non-ambitious a game is, things always take a little bit longer than you expect. And that doesn't mean you can just plan for a 6-month buffer at the end. You have to have a realistic goal, and then you have to be prepared that things are going to change along the way. And if that's adding more time, which means higher budget, or if it's cutting something that's less important for launch and maybe putting it into an update later on, or just cutting it entirely because it doesn't make sense anymore, it's good to be aware of those things. And equally, when you're planning your schedule, it is good to set aside some time for things like marketing activities or going to events, or even just iteration. Sometimes things aren't going to be perfect the first time, and you need to be prepared to readdress them and go back and look at feedback and try things a different way. I don't think I've ever worked on a game that was completely on time, and I don't think I've ever worked on a game that was completely on budget. If they were, it was because serious changes were made, right? So it's tough to hit both of those things, and I think you need to prepare for it as much as you can, but you also need to be prepared that sacrifices have to be made at some point, right?
So you said that you never worked on a game that was completely on time. Is this kind of sounds like might be because of you?
Yeah, you'd think so. Sometimes it is. I mean, I think it's the goal of me, right? I should have said this earlier. My goal is always we want to release on time, on budget, and to a quality level that we're proud of, right? And
happy developers, right?
Happy developers. Yeah, I mean it'd be good.
That's the first.
It'd be good if the developers were always happy too. Usually they are. Devs are awesome. Yeah, I think chat is calling out your burn there. It's a good one. But yeah, those three things are really quite difficult to all achieve. And when I say I don't think any game has ever been on time, I think that the part of that I'm trying to say is to the point we were expecting it to be. Like when you have 2 years, it's very easy to have this big backlog of tasks and all these things you want to accomplish. And then 6 months, 12 months down the line, you start to realize like, oh, okay, this new weapon we were planning on doing, it actually has a bunch of issues with it because of the game, the way that the game is made, or the way that the engine is made, or whatever it is. So you might have to rethink certain parts of the game. I've worked on games that shipped on time, like no problem, but every time you have to rethink something, and you just have to be prepared that your plan is not going to be identical for 2 years, and you need to be reiterating on the plan as well as the game. So it may seem counterproductive, but don't expect your plan to be rigid enough to survive the test of time. Like, it's just, you need a plan, but you also need to constantly be readdressing it and reiterating on the plan as well.
Have a question here in the chat.
Yeah.
Someone is asking, how has 2020 impacted Raw Fury on the production side of things?
Right. Yeah, massively, I would say. We as a publisher, we've always been very open to working from home and working remotely and all these things. So we're quite used to that. And I think we're quite, as a team, we're quite resilient to what's been going on in the world. But it's not always the case for all the teams we work with. Sometimes we have developers who all work together in an office, and them having to go remote. We definitely noticed a shift in that. And I think the thing we're not really talking about when it comes to the whole remote work situation that's forced is that not everybody is happy with that, right? And I think one of the big we're going into Corona discussion here, but one of the things we're not talking about a lot with the effects of COVID is the mental toll that it takes to be forced into isolation and working remotely. And even if we're not seeing massive changes in our games or anything, you can definitely feel that there's this difference working this way, and especially for teams that do, what's a good way to phrase this? Well, the isolation takes a bigger toll on some people than it does on others. And we notice that, absolutely. So it is a challenge. And it's a challenge with communication as well. You know, when somebody who is simply better at talking in person is now forced to be working remotely, of course that's going to have an impact. So I think we're seeing kind of small changes that are ramping up across the board. But we as an internal team, we're pretty used to this way of working. So it's a double answer.
Yeah. We also had, of course, we are missing attending events, showing the games to consumers, right? That is a big thing as well of what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. But, I think that's funnily enough, that's probably sped us up a little bit because we're focused on the games instead. But no, to be completely real, events are a great motivator as well. You work on something in isolation, so to speak, for 9 months, and then you get to go to Gamescom and show it to people like Domino, who we met at Gamescom for Star Renegades a year or two ago. It's really motivating. It's super fun, and I think the team comes back really energized, even if it's exhausting to be standing up for 5 days at Gamescom. It's quite good. So yeah, we've noticed a difference there, but it's in a way, we're seeing a lot of events go more digital. We got to participate in the arrangement of Guerrilla Collective, for example, which was really, really good for us and for a lot of teams, but also for things like the Steam festivals. They're doing a lot of things with demos on Steam these days. We're trying to participate more in those things and trying to reap the rewards, so to speak.
Yeah, we have to adapt, and I think we are lucky that we work in an industry where we can be quite flexible. So we are very grateful because of that. But I think we do miss interacting with fans, and so us. But I think especially the development teams, right, for them meeting face to face with some of their fans. I think that's such a it's such a it's big.
Yeah, like we again Gamescom, we had one of our Discord moderators, Frisky Donuts, hello, came up to me and made the sound of a chicken. It was his introduction, and it's an inside joke. It's really funny. I didn't understand what he was doing first. I couldn't connect because it was long story. Can't explain, but it's really fun. So yeah, we definitely miss meeting the players.
Yeah. You mentioned several instances delays, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like that it's something quite common, right, across the industry, across game development. How do you handle the discussion when a developer comes to you and say like, okay, we need more time?
Yeah, it's a really important one. I'd say first of all, there are three categories of delays. I would argue there are the delays that you want to have, which, like maybe there are features that you didn't have time to do within the deadlines you have, but you really feel like it's worth delaying the game to get those in, even if it's going to up the budget for the game. Even if it's going to take a longer time to break even or to recoup on your investment of the budget. Maybe it's worth doing because something that you don't have time to do now is so crucial. That's the delay you want. Then there are delays that are sort of due to circumstance, like maybe an opportunity comes up and you don't really want to delay, but it's hard to say no, because let's say we've been really fortunate in the past where we've had partners like Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft or Epic or Discord. Like we got a lot of really great people in the industry who've supported our games in tons of different ways. And sometimes if they're able to offer something like, here's an opportunity for you to launch the game live on stage at E3, you're like, oh, okay, that's an opportunity. And you might have to weigh that delay, like the cost versus the opportunity, and figure it out. Then I think the third category is the delay that you have no control over at all, which is, okay, we're done with the game, but there are issues that we cannot launch with, for example. Well, then you're stuck, and then you have to handle that by delaying. And the way we try to approach this is, for all three of these, we try to have a very honest conversation, both internally and with the developers. We, as a publisher, never like make this decision ourselves. We do it together with the teams we work with. So sometimes we've had devs come and say like, hey, we would like to delay. This is the reason why. This is how much time we need. And then we'll have an honest conversation back and forth on, okay, this is the cost of this. This is what it's going to give. And this is our honest opinion. Like, this is why we feel this is either a good idea or a problematic idea. And we'll have the conversation back and forth until we can reach, hopefully, like an agreement on both sides. And that's usually how it goes. And generally speaking, we always feel like if a delay is going to seriously benefit the game, then it's probably worth doing. But we just don't want to put our devs in a position where, like, delaying a game 6 months, that's 6 extra months of development budget every single month. It's going to take a lot longer for the game to recoup. It's going to take longer until the developers start getting royalties for the game. So we need to have those things in mind. And like, if somebody just randomly delayed a game for 6 months, we have to think about what that impact is going to be. So it's a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth. But ultimately, we just try to do what's best for the games and best for the developers. And hopefully we're succeeding in that.
Sometimes a question I try to ask whenever you guys are bringing the topic up is like, okay, so if you have 6 more months, like what are you gonna do in the game to really help the game, because sometimes and I think it's also like happens like very close to launch. Many developers, they get maybe a little bit scared. It's like, okay, this is happening soon. I'm not ready for it. I need more time. But if you have more time, actually, you don't really know what you're going to do with it. So it's not going to make a big difference, right? And
sure.
How do these discussions where you just have to calm down the other team and say it's gonna be good, we are here for you, like how do you have them?
Sure.
We have this kind of discussions.
Yeah. I think a big part of a producer's role is sometimes it's being the person who's like motivating the team and trying to get them excited about their own game, and sometimes it's being the shoulder to cry on. Like it's all sorts, and really it's just having honest conversations. I think that's all it is. You make a great point though. Like if you had 6 more months, would it actually be worth delaying for that? Like are the things that you can do in those 6 months going to be worth doing, or is it better to do them post-launch? Sometimes we run into a situation as well where less is sometimes more, right? Like we know that as a saying, but also if you increase your scope too much and the complexity of a game too much, it can actually become worse. Like the quality of the general experience may go down because you have too many different things going on, and they might not be fully fleshed out. So what first starts as a 6-month plan can easily become a 12-month plan or 18-month plan because you have all these features you want to do, but you actually don't have the time within that time frame to make all of them as awesome as the rest of the game. So there's a lot of complexity to it. But again, we just try to be really honest about what these proposed plans are. And sometimes we'll go to a developer and we'll say, hey, we think that this game might need this. What do you think? We can have that kind of conversation as well. Or conversely, like our players are saying this. We have a closed group in our Discord, for example, called the Game Breakers, which is a phenomenal resource for us, where we have players that are coming in, playing something before it comes out and giving us very unfiltered feedback. And sometimes we have games that go through that process of 10, 20, 50 people playing it from the Game Breakers, and then they tell us, hey, this thing over here, it's not good. Like, it's not fun. And then we have to look at that seriously and go, okay, well, how do we fix that? What does that look like? Does that mean cutting something else or rescoping something else? Does it mean adding more time? Does it mean all sorts of things, right? Like, so there's a lot of conversations that go into a delay, and it's never an easy decision to make, and it's never something that we want. It's at the end of the day, it's a necessary evil to achieve our goals, right?
Mm-hmm. Something that we say within Raw Fury is that the game is the developer's baby, and we try not to get too much involved in the creative part. So we try to support on the publishing side with everything that they need help with, but the creative, we don't touch it. Yeah. So I was wondering, have you ever felt that maybe the game wasn't shaping the way it should have, and you would have opinions about it, you'd like to take it in a different direction, and you felt like you cannot do that?
Yes and no. I think it's a tricky question, right? I mean, we do not dictate the design of our games. That's a really important thing that we have to remind ourselves of as a publisher. And as a result, even if we disagree with a design decision, even if a developer says, I'm going to do things this way, even if we're all like, please don't, please don't do that. If they say, no, this is what I want to do, then it is our responsibility to back that up 100%. Now, sometimes you can go over the line, right? Like if a developer started adding things that were not just controversial but unacceptable, then of course we'd have to have a very frank discussion about that, because it's they equally have a responsibility to make a game that is not doing something really, really weird. If that makes sense. Try not to bring up examples, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, we're here to support the developers, and if their baby is a certain way, then we're here to back that up. Mm-hmm. And we may not always agree with every single decisions, but I think that's healthy, and I think that kind of friction and that kind of honest discussion often leads to really good results. So if we give honest feedback, if players give honest feedback, and the developer still feels strongly like, no, this is what I want to do, then there's probably a really good reason for that. And we are here to back that up and try and help as best we can, not stop them from making their dream game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is something that applies when it comes to game production, but also to other aspects of what we are doing. So I can tell from my experience, I work a lot with business development, and my job is to identify a lot of opportunities, but we'll never take a decision without talking with the developers, talking, among ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe I do have opinions like, I feel like we should do this or this, but the team or the developers, they have a different opinion, so we just have to support them no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So I also wanna mention that we are not only trying to trick you guys. We are also nice.
No, we aren't.
And no, we aren't. Okay. I try to, but I just want to mention that we are gonna we work together. It was a very, very hard job, but we put together a selection of games for Halloween that we would recommend you guys enjoy during Halloween. So you'll be able to find it on Steam during the holiday. And just enjoy. Some of them are a little bit creepy. Some of them are just fun. So games for everyone. Couple of games. And yes, please pay attention for when the clock is gonna strike midnight, because you never know what is gonna happen in some of them.
Ooh, exciting! One of the games on there, the Signifier, is phenomenal. It's really fun when you don't work in a game and you just get to see it get developed on the side. I played it when it first came in and I fell in love with it, and then when it released, I finished the entire game in one day. I was just madly in love, and that's part of the bundle. You should definitely check it out. The Signifier.
It's a good fit for the week, right? For the bundle, right?
Yes. It's spooky. It's not like it's not a jump scare kind of game or anything like that. It's just more psychological thriller and spooky. So definitely check that out if you like scarier but not scary games.
Yes. So Liam, we work together but also differently, right?
Sure.
Separately, different, a little bit different focuses. And sometimes, we have discussions, we don't agree, we want different things. Like, how do we handle that?
That's never happened. We always agree. Completely always on the same page.
But all the discussions that are definitely constructive. We all want the best for our developers. So we are working very hard. I think everyone in the company works very hard within their specialization of, taking these beautiful games to in front of all of you guys. And so your focus is to work close with the developers to make sure the game is taking shape nicely, is done on time, on budget, which never happens, as you said several times.
You have to try.
And then there are people like myself or the marketing team who always come with a lot of requests. It's like, oh, I want the game to be done by this time because I have an opportunity. I need this kind of marketing assets. I need a demo. I need a game on 3 more platforms. And you say yes. And then 2 months before you say sorry, didn't happen.
I mean,
can you tell us why?
That's only partially true.
I'm
but absolutely, no. All jokes aside, I think the work that you do and the marketing and PR teams do is absolutely crucial in getting the word out for the games and finding opportunities that otherwise we. It's about increasing security in a lot of cases as well. When we find a opportunity like launching in Game Pass, for example, or being a part of a new store, sometimes that puts us in a place where the developers no longer have to worry about whether the game's going to sell or not. It puts us in a really, really good position. And even if that's going to be a lot of extra work, it's an opportunity that is definitely worth considering. And in other cases, we have smaller opportunities and maybe they're not going to be as substantial, but in the long run, they might really benefit the game, or there may be tons of reasons to do them. So every time an opportunity comes up, we should always be discussing them. And I think it's really healthy for us as well to always look back at, well, are we doing too much, or is there room for us to be doing more things? And then we always try to accommodate and have those conversations with the devs. So I just think it's really good, and we need to be having those conversations, and I think we are. So I'm happy. In regards to being on time, like sometimes it's worth looking at an opportunity and taking a risk and doing something a little bit extra for a game's potential success. If we always play it safe, probably nothing exciting is going to happen. If you take some risks once in a while, well, that's when you have the opportunity for something to go a bit more magical.
Yeah. Something that I would say it's good to consider of every opportunity regarding new stores, and it's something we discuss, not new stores, every additional platforms. I mean, not only new stores, every additional platform and store. And something we always discuss about is what it takes to bring that game on that specific store, but then also like something that many developers don't think about is the post-launch efforts needed to maintain each and every store, right? Especially when you have like new content update and you need to sim launch on every store. So how long should you add on the timeline whenever you have an additional store for?
It's difficult to say because every additional store that you're supporting on the same platform, or every additional platform, it's another build of the game that you need to create, that you need to test, that you need to publish, or in some cases go through certification. So being live on like 7 different storefronts and platforms all at once, it basically means that if we have a patch it's done, it's tested, it's ready to go, it may still take 2 weeks before it's actually live. So it can slow us down a lot, and that's not always ideal, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you want to be on as many platforms as possible because it's a game that would be amazing on your Switch or amazing on your phone or whatever. So we want to try and be everywhere that makes sense for the game. But yeah, it does, as you're saying, it does come with a huge additional cost of like developing and doing the QA side as well, just the mental bandwidth of the QA folks, like being able to jump between so many platforms. It's a lot of work, and I think the QA team is always going to be the unsung heroes of game dev. They're right at the end. They're the final line of defense between game-breaking bugs and the player actually being able to like enjoy the game. So they don't get enough credit, and you should support your local QA, so to speak. But it's hard to say. Like, I don't think there's really a tangible number that you could put on the end of a schedule to say like, this is how much an extra platform costs. They're all very different, and you need to just look at them individually and then figure out what the additional challenge is going to be and the additional risk, basically.
So how do you guys decide on which platforms a game is going to be available? What do you take into consideration for making that decision?
Well, I think first we just ask the question to the devs, like, because when they start working on something, usually they have an idea of, well, what's the control scheme? Is it designed with a controller? Is it designed with mouse and keyboard or touch? You look at a game like Dandara, for example, which we published a few years ago, and we've still been doing things with them. It was initially developed with like mobile phones in mind and the touchscreen, and they didn't really have an idea for controller support or mouse and keyboard necessarily. And those were things that came up over development. We just asked the questions, and I believe it was actually the folks working with them at the time that suggested controller support. I think it was Gordon, who was producing the game at the time. He was like, this would be really nice with the controller. So it's doing that back and forth and being able to come with ideas and maybe help them out as well, bring in folks from our internal development crew, Furies Studios. Sometimes they can come in and help do things like the porting, or in some cases maybe help out with controller support or something else. And if the developers don't already have an idea, then we can have a conversation. Sometimes they come in and they know, like, we want to be on consoles, we want to be on PC, we don't want to be on mobile. Okay, cool. And that's an easy conversation. Sometimes we have to look at a game and like, Paraspora is actually a great example of a game which is on the PC side. They're doing a lot of things where we're like pushing if I can really buzzword for a second, they're pushing the computational fidelity a little bit with that game. Like, there's a lot going on. There are hundreds and even thousands of units all on the planet all at once. So it's doing so much. and it wouldn't run on a Nintendo Switch, even if we wanted it to, unless we like seriously started stripping down some of the mechanics and simplifying them. And that's a sacrifice we don't want to make with that game, because it's such a core element of it is that that depth and all these things going on. But we may look into other platforms for the game where it would run and would feel good. So it's always a balance. And I think the goal is like, don't try and do too much, but always look at where would this game make sense, and is it possible, and in which case maybe it's worth doing.
Yeah. And would you agree that one of our responsibilities is also to share the knowledge and maybe provide suggestions like about a certain platform? You mentioned earlier that a developer might say, we don't want to do mobile, but I mean, it's on us to maybe share more insights about mobile and see if there is a reason why they should at least consider it. Of course, we are never going to impose it.
Yep. Absolutely. We have our release team that work a lot on the basically just trying to be experts on the platforms and understanding what goes into supporting a game, what goes into releasing a game, and what are the technical challenges there, as well as Furies Studios doing the development side, and of course sales and your team, Andrea, working on the forecast and like trying to figure out, well, is there a market on this platform for this particular game, in which case we can have that conversation. So I think there's a lot that goes into a decision like that, and we have a lot of really smart people that can all come together and make a decision like that. And for me, my goal is really just to bring everyone together so I can go find the clever people and make sure that they're talking to each other, and then I can say something stupid like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, and that we make some decisions. It's a big part of my job is communication and like reducing ambiguity and just making sure people are talking and asking the right questions at the right time. Hopefully, if we 2 months before launch, someone says, what about adding a platform? It's a bit tricky to do that at that time. And so my goal is to try and make sure that we're talking about those things while we can still realistically do them. So
by the way, regarding our upcoming release, we have a suggestion. We'd like to add another store.
Andrea, it's been great. I gotta leave.
But actually, that's true.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that later. I want my lawyer present for a conversation like that.
So let's do this. We have one question for the chat, and then maybe you can address a question back about, let's say, atomic crops, and see if someone else is going to win a code for atomic crops.
Sure.
So the question is, how many species work at the Fury?
Oh, that's a good question. 12.
Would you please expand on your answer? No.
I think it's self-explanatory.
Sounds good. Okay.
12.
So your question for the chat about atomic crops? Something maybe?
Yes. If you want to win an atomic crops key, then I would like you to post in the chat, what is one of the next upcoming bosses for atomic crops? What does it look like?
Next upcoming bosses.
We've teased this, so I'm curious if anyone's been paying attention to atomic crops. Tell us what the upcoming boss is. It's one of several, by the way, but the one we've shown, what does it look like?
Is it going to be in the game in the end, or it's one of those bosses that has been cut off because of timeline constraints?
No, it's not cut. It's for the we're doing a big content update for December as well with atomic crops. So it's one of the I believe 4 new bosses.
4 new bosses.
There we go. Someone got it. Yep. It's a worm.
Congratulations! That was fast.
That was really quick.
Yeah. So it's been 1 hour since we've been talking, but if you guys want to hang around for a couple of more minutes, I would like to ask Liam also, what is the difference between a game producer on the publishing side compared to a game producer embedded in the development team? And do we need both? Which one does a better job?
They're equally awesome. They're super cool, both of them. A game producer in a development team works more on the day-to-day planning and maybe figuring out the tasks for your upcoming sprint if you're working in Scrum or any kind of agile methodology. It's really their job to make sure people are talking and make sure that you have a clear vision and you're heading in the right way and making sure the game gets done. A publishing producer is someone who maybe focuses a little more on bringing together all the different fields like marketing, QA, release, taking care of like localization or putting together credits lists, all sorts of stuff like that. And then in our case, it's trying to figure out.
Sorry, I do feel that you are undermining your work. Like,
No.
I know you're doing way more than that. And
well, I mean, it's funny because like the amount that I dive in on those two sides is very different from game to game. So for some games, I'll be doing both of those parts, and for some of them it's just one part. But yeah, like to what Domino was saying in the chat there, producing is project management, right? But I think this is a very like personal philosophy of mine, but I think a producer is, you're a leader, right? Like that's inherently it's a leader position. But I don't subscribe to the philosophy that a leader is someone who goes around telling people what to do. I think it's much more important that you're the person empowering individuals. And if you, as a producer, can make sure that your entire team knows what the direction is, you know where we're heading, what we're building, through bringing in the right people and having the right conversations, then you can step back more and just let people do their thing as experts on their fields. And you can be there to, like one of my favorite phrases is reduce ambiguity. It's a really good one. I heard at a GDC talk a few years ago, because that really is a big part of the producer role. And what that means is if everything is clear for everybody, then you've done your job. But yeah, it's a lot of standard project management stuff as well, like making sure you have clear tasks in your backlog and making sure you know how long things are going to take to do, or at least roughly. It's a lot of those things too. Yeah. So it's a very flexible role by definition, and it can mean a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, it's up to what the needs of the team is and what the needs of the game is. That is the producer job. And I would also just want to add that anybody can be a producer. And in many cases, you have teams where a person who is like a programmer or a designer or whatever, they are also doing the producer job of organizing people and making sure you have a clear path and all these things. So it's not necessarily someone who has to be dedicated just as a producer. You can have somebody who's combining. The only thing to be aware of is then they're losing time from their main job. So it might be a good idea to have someone who's dedicated as a producer as well. Yeah.
So to summarize, when needed, you also can help out as an embedded producer. I know you've been doing that from time to time with some of the teams if they need the help. Project manager, shoulder to cry on, like the main ambassador for the game internally, communicator, bringing people together.
Playing the games as well. I think it's a huge part, is like knowing the games inside and out. As a producer, you should be that person. If anyone ever has a question on the game, they should be able to come to you and ask. And if you don't know, you can find out. Like that's who you are as a producer, as a person people can always go to with whatever question they may have. But I think a big part of it is also knowing the game inside and out. Or at least for me, like I come from a QA background, so I'm so used to like playing the games a lot. But I think it's crucial. If you're going to work on something, you should know that thing. You should have beat the game several times. You should be maybe one of the best players in your team. I think that's a good challenge to put for yourself. If you're not playing the game and you're a producer, then I think you're failing. Honestly, I think it's crucial to your job.
Yeah. Keeping an eye on the budgets as well, right? Yes. Development budgets, but then also for any additional services from porting, localization, everything that goes in a game. Yep. Advising there, finding resources whenever needed. And then remain responsible for the game to be on time and on budget, right?
And to quality. I think that's a big thing. Like, look, any game can ship on time. Any game can do it.
Yeah.
The only question is, what is that game going to be? You know, is it a problematic mess, or is it something that you can be proud of for the rest of your life?
Yeah. And of course, happiness. Happiness
is important. Happy teams are the best. And, you know, I'll say one quick thing on delays as well, is that if you delay a game multiple times, the stress that puts on a team is immense, and it shouldn't be understated. So if you ever do have to delay a game, be careful about it and try and really make sure that you're delaying it as much as you really need. Not just like if you delay a month at a time, but you actually need 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, you're going to really risk things like burnout happening with your team, because being in release mode is a lot of pressure, regardless of how much work you actually have or don't have. The idea that something you're working on for several years is almost done, like almost going out the door, and people are going to scrutinize it, they're going to criticize it, all these things. It might sell well, it might not. That's a lot of pressure for anyone to handle. And don't put yourself in that situation multiple times in a row. It's just bad management, honestly.
It sounds like you have to be quite good at understanding people and kind of preempting some of these situations to make it as easy as possible, taking care of, the developers and everyone that is trying to help with the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue so. Definitely a good producer is somebody who kind of knows their team and can see their strengths and their weaknesses and get to know people a little bit. You don't. There's always this philosophy: you don't have to be everyone's friend. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's good if you can be friends with your team, and if you can get to know people, it's helpful, right? Don't shy away from that. There's no point being the scary producer in the corner who just goes, "No, you can't get any more time. Oh, you blah blah blah." Like
Loki is, right?
Yeah, like
the
this
scary
guy.
producer.
No, just being human, I think, helps, and treating people like humans helps a lot.
Being human.
I'm sorry, look. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I think we are out of prizes for the day, of announcement. Nothing to announce.
Not today.
Not today, yes. Just like Liam said, there are some updates coming and a lot of games coming in the next years. Maybe, if they won't be delayed.
We definitely have some games coming next year that we are so excited about. I cannot wait to share more.
Yes. Thank you so much, Liam, for sharing your knowledge with myself. I really think I learned more about what you are doing on a day-to-day. Many things I didn't know, actually.
Thank you. Honored to be here, really.
And I'm sure everyone appreciates it. And there are going to be other people who are going to also watch these materials on YouTube and Twitch in the future. So we are here to share our knowledge and help out as much as we can.
Yeah, if anyone ever has production questions, hit me up on Discord. You know where I am, the Raw Fury Discord, or on Twitter. I'm always happy to geek out about producery things or games in general. So it's been a pleasure, Andrea. Thank you so much for indulging me in long monologues and pretending like it was useful.
Yeah.
Very, very kind of you.
And I noticed someone was saying we wrote the link for Discord. It wasn't right, and maybe it was on purpose. You guys, it's not for everyone.
Oh, it's an exclusive group.
Yes, you have to work to find out how to get in there.
The first rule of the Raw Fury Discord is it doesn't exist.
It does exist, but
please join it, seriously.
Exactly. Yes, and continue sending us bugs and issues and opinions and questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for watching.